So, ladies and gentlemen, as you are most likely aware, this week the Supreme Court of the United States heard oral arguments on both the Proposition 8 case in California and on the DOMA case, the Defense of Marriage Act, which is a national law. And look, I'm not going to get into the prediction game that a lot of shows do, not good shows, but a lot of mainstream media shows get into the prediction game. I frankly have absolutely no idea how the Supreme Court is going to rule on both of these cases. Many people are saying they could conceivably toss out both cases on standing. They could try to punt them down the road. If that happened with Prop 8, that would leave it struck down by a lower court while not setting the precedent for allowing marriage equality nationally. There are a lot of indicators that they may try to punt, but frankly, I don't know. I want to first here talk about DOMA for a little bit. Now, DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, which I need to remind us all that, of course, DOMA was in fact signed by Bill Clinton. Again, Democrat Bill Clinton signed DOMA. Well, DOMA, if you're not familiar with what exactly DOMA does, DOMA prevents married LGBT couples from collecting federal benefits that are awarded to straight married couples. Marital status is actually a factor in apparently over 1,100 federal laws. We're talking about huge ones like Social Security benefits. We're talking about estate benefits. We're talking about estate taxes. We're talking about taxes when you're married, lower taxes when a couple is married. We're talking about healthcare benefits. We're talking about adoption. We're talking about parenting choices. We're talking about citizenship benefits, to name just a few. There's 1,100 plus federal laws that directly have a lot of it to do with your actual marital status. Now, 4 district courts and 2 appeals courts have struck down DOMA as unconstitutional. The specific DOMA case that the Supreme Court heard oral arguments for is actually from an 83-year-old widower named Edith Windsor. Now, Edith, who lives in New York State, married her longtime partner, a woman named Thea Spire, in Canada. They went up to Canada and got married. Thea died in 2009. When she died, she left everything to her wife, Edith. And as a result, Edith got a $363,000 estate tax bill. Now, if they were a straight married couple, the tax bill would have been $0. That's right, 0, nothing, not a dime. But because of DOMA, the government claims that she owes $363,000. It is sick. It is truly sickening. Now, obviously, this is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution. It clearly is. And in this case, it is a violation to the tune of close to $250,000. You know, again, it's one of these whole idea about rights. Tiered rights are not rights, as this case is clearly showing. Now, we've talked about this before on the show. After the Obama administration made the decision that they were going to stop defending DOMA in court, the Obama administration said that they felt that DOMA was unconstitutional and they were no longer going to defend it in court. House Republicans and John Boehner took it upon themselves to take up the homophobic defense. They have to this day allocated at least $3 million to hire outside counsel to defend DOMA in court. And then again, this is not a private money that they're spending. This is $3 million plus taxpayer dollars that they have allocated for this. So obviously those fiscally conservative Republicans are perfectly willing to spend millions of taxpayer dollars to argue against equality. There's your public-private tax dollars being spent well there, right? But because really, it's Republicans who care about the deficit, obviously. But let's move back to the Prop 8 case for a minute here. I want to play a clip from the hearing where Justice Sonia Sotomayor questions Charles Cooper, who was a lawyer hired to defend Prop 8. It is a pretty amazing clip. Let's take a listen.
Outside of the marriage context, can you think of any other rational reason for a state using sexual orientation as a factor in denying homosexuals benefits or imposing burdens on them? Is there any other rational decision-making that the government could make? Denying them a job, not granting them benefits of some sort, any other decision?
Your Honor, I cannot. I do not have anything to offer you in that regard.
If that is true, then why aren't they a class? If they're a class that makes any other discrimination improper, irrational, then why aren't we treating them as a class for this one benefit? Are you saying that the interest of marriage is so much more compelling than any other interest the state could have?
Well, yeah, I am saying it's more compelling, because marriage is different, you see, because marriage discrimination is different because marriage is between a man and a woman, and God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and the Bible and Jesus, who said nothing about gay marriage and traditional marriage, it's traditional marriage. You see, when you put it as simply as Justice Sotomayor did, and we shouldn't have to put it like that because really, this is really that bloody obvious, this lawyer defending Prop 8 had nothing. He had nothing other than the supposed legal defense of traditional marriage. So let's take a minute to kind of look at those who, like the lawyer Charles Cooper, who are arguing the traditional marriage defense. Actually, Jill Filipowicz from Feminist, who has a last name that is very similar to mine, even though it's spelled a little differently and pronounced a little differently. Jill had a great post up about the quote traditional marriage and what it actually means. She actually has 7 points that I'm going to read about what it means to be a woman who might be arguing for traditional marriage. So if you are a woman and you're fighting for, quote, traditional marriage, it actually means, according to Jill, number 1, you were a virgin before marriage, and if not, you should probably be put to death. I mean, that is traditional marriage. That's what marriage used to be. If any of you had premarital sex and you're arguing for traditional marriage, well, you deserve to die. And men, if your wife ever had sex with anyone other than you, then she will also die. Jill's point number 2, upon marriage, you meld your entire identity into your husband. That means you have no checking account, no credit cards, no personal property, and no right to file a lawsuit. That includes suing for divorce. So yeah, that's what you're arguing for. You want traditional marriage. That is what traditional marriage was. It also means, number 3, you cannot say no to having sex with your husband. If you do say no and he rapes you, it's not really rape. I mean, that's the tradition, isn't it? That is the tradition. And if that's what we want traditional marriage, then that's what we're asking for, to bring it back to the good old days when men could rape their wives. Number 4 of Jill's point. Number 4, if your husband hits you, that's his right, and it's a personal problem, not assault. Well, clearly, that's what traditional marriage is all about. Number 5, if you're raped before you're married, you'd better be a virgin, otherwise it's not really rape. In any event, your rapist will pay your father for property damage. You'll marry your rapist and all will be well. Again, that is what the tradition says, so why we should be going back to that time. Number 6, if your husband dies and you haven't given birth to a son, there's an easy fix. You have to marry your brother-in-law, and he has total sexual control over you. Clearly, that is what traditional marriage is all about. And her final point, number 7, you can only marry someone of your same race and religious faith. Interracial or interfaith marriages are immoral and unnatural, which shouldn't be a problem since your dad will choose your husband for you anyway. It's a great piece that she wrote. It really is great. You should check it out at Feminist. And if you are arguing for, quote, traditional marriage, that is what you're arguing for. But we do not view marriage traditionally, because traditionally, marriage is crazy. We have evolved. Thankfully, on this issue, we have evolved. Not enough, obviously, but we have evolved quite a lot when it comes to this. And really, how many men who are currently out there arguing for traditional marriage, who are out there arguing against equality, would be thrilled, would be happy if we went back to the good old days where wives were their husband's property, when they could do all of the things they listed, when they could beat their wives with impunity, when they could rape their wives with impunity. A good portion of these sexist creeps do actually think that way. That's the thing, though. That's the thing about equality under the law. The thing about equality is, it is not supposed to matter what some homophobic, sexist, backwards goober thinks. It's not supposed to matter. We are all supposed to actually be equal under the law, under our Constitution, period. And right now, on this issue, it is obvious and clear that we are not. We are not. So we're going to see in a couple of months whether or not the Supreme Court decides to uphold the concept of equality under the law. We'll see if they decide to uphold the Constitution. And if they don't, if they punt it down the road, say it has no standing, if they rule against equality, which is a possibility. Kennedy is a swing vote. He seemed to be kind of leaning towards the equality side, but you never friggin' know. But if for some reason they punt or they rule against it, well, then we will have to achieve it some other way, and I am 100% confident in my lifetime we will.